Beatles show up in my hotel room, in my suite. I had a record player there, and they wanted to hear Pet Sounds. I played it for them twice. So I was told they distilled the vibe of "Wouldn't It Be Nice" and our sound and our harmony into "Here, There, and Everywhere" in the Revolver album. But looking back, hindsight, I realized they were our total promotion team, spreading the word. And people, they started talking about the Beach Boys and Pet Sounds. It exploded in England and Europe. John B. from Pet Sounds went to number 5. But thank you, John. Thank you, Paul.
Well, here we are, over 60 years in the business, yes. Over 100 million records sold around the world. One of the greatest bands ever, the Beach Boys, and what a pleasure it is today to be chatting to you guys. We're here with Mike and Bruce as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And it's just great because sometimes life has a habit of dragging you along at breakneck speed. And so every now and again, it's great just to stop and look back and reflect and look at this. The Beach Boys by the Beach Boys.
Can you lift that up? I can't.
I barely can't.
I'm too old now to hold that up.
Not with one arm. I mean, this is like an encyclopedia of just some great times.
Private encyclopedia.
With some great pictures, some fantastic memories.
Genesis is a fabulous company. They've done, lots of beautiful books for years and years. I think they started in '74, I was told.
Yeah.
But this is a total blessing, a great honor for them to undertake this, and we have to give credit to our management company, Iconic, who arranged it, and we were happy to participate with us. Particularly Bruce, he's a collector. He has everything that we ever did.
Oh, so you hang on to everything?
Oh, he does, yes.
So where do you find the room?
I don't. It's stored.
Okay, that's good.
It's in, security.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. And you know what I think the other great thing is? We've just had the warmest weekend of the year.
I know.
Here in the UK. So thank you for bringing the weather with you.
You're very welcome. And we were very happy to see the sun shine.
But, I just happened to be near a beach on Saturday.
Yeah? Which beach?
Just in Essex, near Heybridge.
Oh, it wasn't Brighton.
Not Brighton.
Okay.
But the Beach Cafe was playing songs from the Beach Boys.
All right.
Awesome.
Which is great. I mean, so why do you think your music has stood the test of time? Well, yeah, people are still enjoying it now.
It's incredible how the modern audience responds to our music. We just did the New Orleans Jazz Festival, a festival called Stagecoach, and one called Love and Life in Charlotte, North Carolina. Thousands of people. And in North Carolina, it was great because it was in the sunshine still. It was like we went on at 5 or 5:30 or something like that. Mm. The sun was up. This crowd was having such a great time. I mean, a tremendous response. We only did about an hour of music, and then, I mean, they were clapping, they were singing along, jumping up and down.
And they know every word. And so when you look out into the crowd now, I mean, what kind of age groups are you looking at?
Well, in that case, it was a lot of ages, but the majority were young people. Yeah.
Yeah, that one, particularly young people. But when we played the Hollywood Bowl last summer, we had all ages, 46,000 people, and the symphony orchestra was great. All ages.
And grandparents, their kids, and their grandchildren.
They can share it with
coming out as a family.
Yeah,
that's really special.
And of course, the documentary on Disney Plus.
Oh yes,
streaming from the 24th.
Yeah. Right.
And again, this is great because we really get an insight. We get to look back and some of those early days when you started out as a garage band.
Well, a family band before the Garage, which is the Wilson's converted garage into a music room. The place I grew up in was a grand piano, an organ, and a harp in the living room, looking over the city of Los Angeles. And every birthday party, every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every New Year's, it would always be about music. And so the aunts and uncles and cousins would all get together. And even if there were little issues in personalities and rubs and stuff, like my Uncle Murray, who's Brian Dennis and Carl's father, and my father didn't get along that great, but when it came to music, everybody sang their part, everybody harmonized. And so it was a life lesson that, yes, there may be disparities and you know, issues that arise, but when it comes to music, it was always about harmony and the love of singing, love of music.
Who were your idols back then? Who were you listening to?
For me, it was Chuck Berry. Everly Brothers were huge.
Those harmonies.
Oh, the blend was amazing. So we strove to recreate the blend, but with more harmonies, because there were the harmonies of the doo-wop groups that were an influence, the church music, which were an influence, but the Four Freshmen were probably the biggest influence of all, because those close four-part harmonies that Brian would sit at the piano and decipher them, and then he'd dole out the different parts. I'd sing the bass on those type of songs. He'd sing the high part. Then Al and Carl would sing, and then Bruce came in a little bit later. In 1965, he's the new guy.
The new
Tenor two.
And so, and he's able to sing in the same fashion. And it was, I like, for instance, California Girls was the first song that Bruce sang with us. And I was out in the hallway writing the words while Brian is in the studio with the wrecking crew, they called him, doing the track.
So what was it like, Bruce, for you getting the call?
Well, I haven't gotten that call yet. Actually, to be honest with you, Mike called me because he knew I was in the biz, so to speak, young guy in the biz, doing great. And
Brian was retiring from the road.
Sure, yeah.
And Glenn Campbell was playing, but he was going to become Glenn Campbell, and Brian wasn't going to go out. So I called 12 different musicians. One of them, Eddie Carter, became our bass player a couple of years later.
He was a great guitarist.
I kind of said, well, what would you think if I came down? I'll bring a little electric piano down. I went down, I borrowed Al's white pants and a striped shirt, and I was busy with Terry Melcher knocking off the Beach Boys and car songs and covering them. We had this song called "Hey Little Cobra" that sounds just
and
like
Summer Means Fun.
Summer Means Fun. So we were doing that. So I knew all the songs, and I got up there and I just kind of sang, and it didn't matter because the screaming was so loud, no one heard me. God, this is really great. I guess I did okay. You know, finally I learned all the parts, vocal parts, and Carl taught them to me. And Carl asked me if I played bass. Of course I didn't. I said, yeah, man.
That's incredible, because it was that era of hysteria.
Yes.
The fans went absolutely. You were the first real, rock and roll band. Mm-hmm. I mean, before that, it had been individuals.
We're the first boy band.
You were the
band,
first
yeah.
boy band.
I mean, think about the people screaming for Elvis.
I mean, did you meet Elvis?
Oh, many times.
Yes.
Yeah?
It's
cool.
recorded in the same studio complex.
He came over and he knocked on the door around 68, 69.
Was that when he was wearing his cape?
No, not that one. This is when he's going back on the road.
Okay.
Skinny guy, 34 years old, looked great. And he came and talked to us and asked us questions about what it would be like going on the road and the sound systems. It was great. And he got us some tickets for opening night, but we were on the road. So we went 3 or 4 nights later. It's okay. Same songs.
That must have been great as kids back then.
It was fantastic.
And what was life like? Because you were, I think sometimes people forget, you were so young at the time.
Well, we still are.
Oh, yeah. Young at heart.
I mean, you both look great, by the way.
Thank you.
You both look absolutely fantastic.
Well,
but I mean, really, was it all work? Were you partly living the beach life as well?
We were when we could, but we did work. We did so many albums. What was it, 3 albums in 1 year?
Well, when I joined, in a 12-month period, I thought this was all normal. I didn't know it wasn't. 3 albums and touring at the same time.
The Party album, the Pet Sounds album, and of course, Good Vibrations.
Summer Days, Summer Nights.
Yeah, all in 1966.
That's great. I mean, we'll talk about Pet Sounds, but Good Vibrations.
Yes.
I love the story about Good Vibrations and how that was written.
Well, my cousin Brian did several different takes in different studios around town and spent a fortune in $60. But I somehow procrastinated and hadn't written the words yet. But because it wasn't really finished yet, so when the composite of the track was ready, we had the vocal session, And I had not written the words, and he's relying upon me. Brian is relying upon me to come up with that. So I dictated the lyrics to my then wife, Suzanne, who's mother of Haley and Christian, who's now singing with us and has been. And I said, I love the colorful clothes she wears and the way the sunlight plays upon her hair. You know, that kind of thing. I was envisioning, it's the 60s, 1966, and I was envisioning a girl who's all into peace and love and flower power. I mean, there was things like student unrest and Vietnam War and stuff going on. Yes, there was all that crap going on. But I wanted to portray this girl who was all about love, and just the vision of her is enough to give you.
That might have been Mike Love.
It gives you just even knowing her.
We can trademark that.
Envisioning her gives you excitations.
And again, it's a song that it's just timeless. It gets in.
A psychologist in Sheffield said it was. He tested bunches of songs from the perspective of which songs make people feel the best. Good Vibrations came in at number 1.
I can imagine.
Yeah, which is a tremendous honor. This was recently, like a year or so ago. So that's fantastic. The shelf life of Good Vibrations will never expire.
And Pet Sounds, I mean, it was so well received over here.
Yes.
People absolutely loved it in the UK.
Yes.
Didn't get the same response back home.
Let me speak to that for
go ahead.
1 second.
Please do.
Capitol Records decided, because they couldn't push the band more summer, and Pet Sounds is out. They worked on it barely 3 months, and then they put out the very best of the Beach Boys, Volume 1. Okay, are you into the Beach Boys? Who? Oh, yeah, we are. Anyway, I'm over here with 2 copies of Pet Sounds, and it wasn't released in England at all or Europe. And the Beatles show up in my hotel room, in my suite. I had a record player there, and they wanted to hear Pet Sounds. And I played it for them twice. So I was told they distilled the vibe of "Wouldn't It Be Nice" in our sound and our harmony into "Here, There, and Everywhere" in the Revolver album. But looking back, hindsight, I realized they were our total promotion team, spreading the word. And people, they started talking about the Beach Boys and Pet Sounds. It exploded in England and Europe. John B. from Pet Sounds went to number 5. But thank you, John. Thank you, Paul.
And Paul said the Good Vibrations was like one of his favorite songs, or if not his favorite, or something. It was very generous in his appreciation and
That's
praise.
good to hear, because often you hear about the rivalry.
Well, there was a competition. There was a rivalry, yeah, but it made you want to do better.
You always want to be number one. You want to be top of the game.
Well, of course, and as an artist, you always hope that your song as you're releasing is going to be number 1, but it isn't. But we did very well.
Brian heard Rubber Soul and decided that in his mind it was a front-to-back album, thematically like a Sinatra, Johnny Mathis, but in rock and roll they didn't have it front-to-back. And he started concocting the idea of an album like that, and it turned into being Pet Sounds.
And there were 2 groups. There was the Beach Boys recording group and the Beach Boys touring group. Mm-hmm. Brian retired from the touring group in late '64. Glenn Campbell came in for a few months until Bruce joined the group. So there were 2 groups, and Brian was absolutely in charge of the recording and production. And Carl, my cousin Carl, was the band leader. But I was into the live music thing and doing the lyrics if needed for Brian and so on. So it was like different divisions of the same, corporation.
And how was it for you when, being family,
yes,
when Brian went through that tough time and decided that he could no longer perform?
Yeah, well, not everybody's comfortable touring so many days of the year. And he had the strong desire to go into the studio and focus on arranging and producing and recording and working with, and nobody was better as an individual than Brian with a group of great musicians. I mean, it was incredible to watch him. But, when he left, I mean, it was sad because he's your first cousin, and nobody had a better falsetto than him. And Bruce was able to sing those parts, which was a great thing. But the problem that affected the group the most, I think, later on that decade was the incursion of drugs. Some people think that they need to get high and do whatever in order to be creative. But I've always thought that people are creative in spite of it. But anyway, that's just my opinion. But there was some, Brian became a recluse for a while, but I still got him to get, I went over to his house and we drove to the beach and we walked along the sand, and then we came back and wrote Do It Again, which went to #1 in Great Britain.
Sure.
Yeah, in 1968.
It's the sound of the summer.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We've got a few of them.
And I only bring this up because it's in the documentary, but
Yes.
obviously you spoke about Murray. And we know the issues that he had with the boys, with his sons.
Yeah.
What was your, I mean, being outside of, you weren't one of his sons, you were still family, but
Yeah.
being outside of that circle, how was it working with Murray? And then obviously, eventually having to deal legally with him.
Well, no, Brian and I fired him. And
Yeah.
to get even with me, he couldn't give it well, anyway, let me say that he got even with me by not crediting me for the lyrics that I wrote for California Girls, for I Get Around, for, Little Saint Nick, and for a bunch of other songs, lots of songs. So I was not credited, and I had to go to court. But that was 25 years ago, something like that, and finally was able to get restitution on some of the songs, not all of them. But that's life. Things happen. I never conceived of in a million years that my uncle and my cousin would allow me to be disenfranchised or cheated, basically. And that's a tough one, that's a tough one. But, I have way more things to be positive and thankful and grateful for than I have to be regretful for.
Well, it's all here. It's all here in the book, The Beach Boys, and of course in the documentary, Disney Plus, streaming
Yes.
from the 24th of May. Can I just ask, before you go, looking back, reflecting, if you could go back to one moment that appears in the documentary and relive it, which would it be?
Bruce?
I think at the end of the documentary, here are some lovely white-haired gentlemen sitting at the beach, talking and going over old times and certain songs. And Brian, you probably think if everything you read, Brian doesn't exist, on the planet. He does. And
His long-term memory is right there.
Yeah,
Good.
right there. And
Good.
so we went. It was great. I think that's my favorite moment in the documentary.
One of my favorite moments is to see us on stage in Washington, D.C. in front of 500,000 people doing a concert on July 4th. Because I love the recording process, but I favor the live music situation because you see in the moment the response of the audience and the effect of the music. And we love doing our music, but it's an amazing thing that people hear it and they're uplifted in spite of all the crap that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
They literally, we communicate those good vibrations. And wouldn't it be nice to have fun?
Everyone needs to go and relive the euphoria of the live music. And also the emotion, like you mentioned. There were tears at the end of the documentary. It's such a... I'm not going to give it away, but people need to go see.
Do you know one of Queen Elizabeth's favorite songs, what it is? It's California Girls.
There we go.
Really,
Is that-
really.
We rest our case.
Yeah, we rest our case.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
This is gold.